Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Brz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the new thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And good morning, dear ones. Rev Brz with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And we're a couple of ministers talking shit. Happens on Friday mornings here on the New Thought Media Network, 7 a.m. on the Mountain Time Zone. So thank you for being with us and joining us here this morning. Last week we took a week off for the holidays, and thank you for that. So we did a rebroadcast, which means we're a little behind on some of the news stories going on around in the world. But we want to start today and jump right in and join in this story and have a little perspective on what's going on here with the Olympics. Folks, if you haven't heard, the Olympics seems to have a problem, and they seem to have a problem with racism. Imagine that. An organization that's been on the planet for, a couple hundred years, run by a bunch of old white men, and it's coming forward that they have a problem with racism. Now, for me, this all kind of emerges from this recent I just lost the woman's name. I am so sorry. Sherry, the sprinter. What's her name? Z, help me out here. Look at it, and I just lost it off my top of my head.
I did too.
It'll jump back in. But I think most people know the story. She runs a great race. I'm not much of an Olympic sports person. I don't do an awful lot of following of the Olympics, and does a great job. Fabulous 100-meter race. Is heading to the Olympics, and then tests positive for THC, for cannabis. In the state of Oregon, where this trial happens, cannabis is legal. That's irrelevant. Has nothing to do with international Olympic rules. And I got to tell you, here's what I love most, Z. This woman has been nothing but absolutely authentic, professional, and straightforward in what, at least her public expression of all this.
Yes.
She admitted, right? She came right out. She said, yeah, I feel I received news in a public forum, and she received information that her mother had died. Her biological mother had died recently. From a reporter in an article, in an interview period where she had no idea. Situational aside.
Yes.
Woman, she took responsibility for her actions, and she's willing to live according to the rules and the agreements she made when she just agreed to be an Olympic athlete. Put that aside, and just a little bit of research brings forward the reminder that the Olympics have that bigger problem. So, Sha'Carri, that's right.
Yep. Sha'Carri, yes.
Sha'Carri, thank you for putting that in our private chat there, Z. So Sha'Carri Richardson, I think she's doing a great job. She's not going to the Olympics. She's not going to make it this time, but I get a feeling we're going to hear more and more about her from her in the track and field world. So, how about you?
Well, and people come down on both sides of the fence on this, as always. There's always two sides of the fence, and there are people saying, "Well, she broke the rules." And yes, technically, that's true. I would point to an even bigger thing: is they need to go ahead and make this a federal law to decriminalize marijuana and be done with this thing. The consumption of alcohol at Olympic events, I'm sure, is over the top.
Astronomical, yes.
and I'm pretty sure there's no ban in there for that. And if an Olympic athlete was to do that before they not when they're getting ready to race, after, all right. So I think that is a bigger story, but from the marijuana piece. But the other piece is right now I just read, and I'm not sure if it's final yet. They're looking to not maybe even have spectators at the events in Tokyo because of the fear of the COVID. So
they made that announcement yesterday, actually. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, that's going to be an interesting. That's kind of be like the basketball players playing basketball in the bubble in Orlando.
Right.
A sporting half of the fun, if you will, or half of the energy at a sporting event is to have spectators witnessing these individuals who've trained and dedicated and mentally, physically, emotionally to compete, which boost up the energy, and that's not going to be there now. And so one of the biggest parts of the Olympics for me is the Olympic ceremony. How's that going to be if nobody's there?
Right, a bunch of jet-lagged athletes wandering through a field waving at nothing. Yeah, right. I hear it. They did announce yesterday no spectators. Originally, it was only going to be 50% spectators, and they were all going to have to be Japanese citizens, right? Locals, no internationals originally anyway. And yesterday they announced now no spectators at all.
It'll be interesting.
It will be interesting. And again, our bigger story is now, and here's my admission, right, folks? If you watch this program, if you watch New Thought Media Network, we are, I believe, supporting and serving this greater healing in the apparent cultural divide between black and white in this country.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a real divide. There's really no separation. We strive to demonstrate that each and every week on this program. And as the white guy in the mix, I woke up this week going, well, shit, the Olympics too?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for some reason, I thought maybe the Olympics were immune from the white supremacy, from the racist tendencies, from all of the... And the truth is, no. And I guess I thought maybe because it was an international body. And they force us to speak French, and even when we don't want to, and all these things that I guess there was some piece of me that was like, no, that's safe. That's safe. We're okay there. But it would appear not. And this story has really forced me to start doing some digging and looking into some deeper stories. Black women and swim caps. And how hard it's been for black women to get swim caps approved by the Olympic Committee so they can even race. And don't feel like they're being held back and at a disadvantage in the race, just in a swim cap and more and more. And track and field, there does seem to be even more than just casual racism or more than just historic racism. There appears to be active work to hold back black track and field stars. Salon put out a pretty hefty article. I'm most of the way through it. They've got a few of them that they're looking at. The one that really, where is it now?
And the other thing, go ahead.
They show in a July 6th article, recent Olympic rulings show dehumanization of black women in sports.
Yeah, well,
amazing.
If you look back at, heck, if we go all the way back in the Olympics to when Jesse Owens was running in Germany, I mean, we can go way back there. That stands on its own. And then if you move forward to 1968, when you had Tommy Smith and John Carlos, hold up a Black Power fist during the anthem in Mexico City when they were trying to bring attention to the conditions and the plight, if you will, of African Americans, blacks, at that time. So now you fast forward from 1968 to 2021 seems like a long time, because it is. These same kinds of things, and they've made rules that you couldn't, if you do a black power fist, anything like that, there'll be repercussions if you did that during this ceremony in Tokyo. So it's going to be.
And real quick, let's add Gwen Berry's name to that list for her refusal or for her turning away from the flag and the national anthem in Oregon last week in the track and field trials.
Yes.
Right. Another part of this that everybody's using that to vilify this young woman. When we can add her name to this list of activist athletes that have for decades now been trying to be seen, be heard in ways.
So it's interesting because we have this we have this activity going on that says I am going to be more than an athlete, right? We always had the concept, a dumb jock, right? And so now we have athletes who've always been smart, intelligent, articulate, involved, and now that they are beginning to exercise that opportunity more, or be more visible in the exercising of it. They've always been there and they've always exercised it. Now that's beginning to be a problem, and the majority of the society say, I just, as the woman said on, I think it was Fox, just shut up and dribble the ball, kind of an attitude. Like because you're an athlete, you don't have an opinion, or you don't have a brain to articulate issues. Not right. and not gonna stop, I don't think. Yeah, that's just my guess.
Lady, your skill at reading off a teleprompter does not qualify you to do anything. So just shut up and read your lines, will you? And athletics, man, I'll tell you, I think you're onto something here, right? White America is afraid. There's no question about it. We saw another headline we were talking about that. What really scares people about critical race theory and teaching of critical race theory is that whites might have to admit we're in some way complicit. I'll say it right up. We're all complicit. Yeah. Generational. I don't care how many generations removed you are. So athletes, for a long time, we really abused athletes of color. We really took, and I know it's still happening, but it did open up an economic door that now generations down the road, we're paying athletes so well that many black athletes never say, well, wait a minute. Yeah, you better listen to my voice. You have to start listening to our voice collectively. Yeah. I hadn't thought about this today, but folks, just imagine if every black athlete in the United States or every non-white athlete in the United States all decided to take a week off. We call that a strike, right? Right? What if they all sat down? What if they all said, I'm going beyond taking a knee. I'm going to sit this year out. And let's see what white sports would happen with. Hockey might survive, but that's the only one, right? That's like the only sport that might survive would be hockey. Wow. See, it feels like we are at a turning point, right? The ship is turning.
It's turning. It's like trying to, turn a big ocean voyage machine. It doesn't just turn. It's not like a speedboat. You turn it on a dime. It takes a little while to get that big thing moving around. But you can see, if you're looking out the window, I was just looking at a car lot, and now I'm looking at mountains. Something's going on here. You see it's turning. And so I think what we have to continue to do individually and collectively is to raise the voice, to bring up the issues, to to allow us, whether we're on one side of the fence or the other, to continue to have the conversation, to bring up incidents, either on either side. You know, if someone has an incident that they think supports another or the opposite side of the argument, if you will, let's talk about it. Because until we're able to look at these issues from a 360-degree perspective, and then be able to say, okay, blind spot here, over exaggerated here, what's the holistic approach to doing this so that we have equity and justice? I heard a great one yesterday. We talk about this equity thing, and so we're at a fence and everybody wants to see over the fence. And so we give everybody equal size boxes and they put them down and they stand on the box. But now we've given everybody equal equipment, if you will, but still everybody can't see over the fence. I'm 5'6", you're about 6 something. You probably can see over the fence now. I still can't, right? So we have to understand that, when we start talking about these terms, equity and justice, they're not just hollow terms. We have to really get into them to understand what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. And the first step, I believe, is the equity.
Yes.
Right. We get to the equity. So the equity says instead of all of us getting the same number of boxes to look over the fence, the guys with a little less stature get more boxes. Tall guys get less boxes. So, and then we're going to go beyond that, and we're going to remove the fence completely. We're going to remove the source of the separation. We're going to remove the experience that created the inequity in the beginning.
Yeah.
But we got to get to equity first.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, we got to get to justice first. But again, I think we're making some progress there, and that's our second big story of the week, folks. Wow, what a huge shout out to Nicole Hannah-Jones. If you have not heard this story, and I was not aware of this, Nicole Hannah-Jones is a journalist. She works with the New York Times, I think was it? And very big, very well known now, or becoming more and more well known. The story is she was denied tenure at UNC, and she was UNC Chapel Hill. Yeah. She was denied tenure because of her involvement in a journalistic endeavor called the 1619 Project. Now, I had not heard about the 1619 Project until very, very recently. Z, you have a little bit more. I think you know a little bit more. Why don't you fill people in on what the 1619 Project is?
Well, yeah, the 1619 Project is a project that speaks to that this was the first time that slavery really took a root in the country. Now, we know that the slavery, as we look at now, that became what is chattel slavery, started with the Portuguese back in 1519. And then actually the first ship of slaves that so-called documented that came to this country, the first slaves were taken off of a Portuguese ship where an American ship, got into conflict. But the 1619 Project speaks to that whole thing about how slavery became prevalent in this country, and it kind of chronicles that whole activity. And it speaks to the whole difference of, throughout history, there's been this concept of slavery. And in a lot of ways, it was more akin to prisoners of war, indentured servants, that kind of thing. Now, not to say that they didn't have horrible treatment, but a lot of them were able to free themselves, so forth and so on. But the difference between that particular brand of slavery, if you will, and what took place in the Americas was chattel slavery. And in chattel slavery looks at the individual that's a slave pretty much like an animal, and they treat them like an animal. And they just like the livestock or anything else that a person may have on a farm. And we already know from a black perspective, 3/5 of a human, it speaks to a whole nother thing. And so that's what that whole 1619 is about, trying to really get people to understand what slavery was in this country.
Yeah. So if you've ever wondered where that term 400 years comes from, this is it. 1619, August of 1619, is considered by many to be the first time people are sold as to colonists in the United States, in Virginia. So Ms. Harris Jones is UNC Chapel Hill is saying, well, we kind of like you, you're an all right person, but we're not going to offer you tenure because you're trying to teach, because you're involved with teaching people about the history of slavery as a black female. And that created a big backlash. That created a lot of push. And a lot of people stood up and said, wait a minute, hold on. So this past week, actually prior to the 4th of July holiday, the board at UNC Chapel Hill meets and says, okay, well, we kind of stuck our thumb in that one, didn't we, boys? And backpedal and offer Ms. Hannah Jones tenure. Yeah. For which she quickly says, yeah, thanks, but no, I'm good. I got some bigger things to do here. Yeah. And in her no thank you to UNC Chapel Hill announces that she will be the inaugural Knight Chair on Racism, KNIGHT, the Knight Chair on Racism for Howard University, a historically black college in HBCU. This sounds like just a massive win for Howard, a massive wake-up call for UNC Chapel Hill. And I personally now have another new hero to add to my list of journalists and do some more reading up on what Nicole Harris Jones has done.
Yeah, and I applaud her so much, having been a graduate of an HBCU. I think is great. And one thing also that's happening, you just kind of spawned this in my head. Right now, in terms of athletics, we're going to put the athletics and colleges together again here. A lot of former athletes are now becoming head coaches at several HBCUs, and they're beginning to attract some star power, 4- and 5-star athletes that would normally go to predominantly white universities that are now starting to come to HBCU. The latest push is Reggie Theus, who was a basketball player, has now accepted the head basketball coach. Previously it was all football, but now he's just accepted the head basketball coach job at Bethune-Cookman University down in Daytona Beach. And we know about Deion Sanders at Jackson State, and I forget where Eddie George, he just went somewhere. So it will be interesting to see, because back in the day, the black athletes that went into the NFL that did stellar work, 90% of them, I would say, were out of HBCUs. When you look at that whole list of Willie Gallimores and Bob Hayeses and Willie Stodger, all of them, they were coming out of HBCUs, and then they were siphoned off, if you will, to predominantly white university for better equipment, opportunities, so forth and so on. So now there's some switch in that, and it's starting small, but I think it's going to be interesting to see, especially now where kids can make these transfers during the COVID protocol and not have to sit out a year. And in some cases, they've gained extra year to play. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out as well. And can't wait to see what Ms. Jones does up at Howard.
Oh, I know. I agree. I look forward to seeing what she's going to do. And it seems like this is part of that, removing the systemic barriers. Mm-hmm. This is removing the fence. It's only one plank of the fence right now, but it's that removing of the fence.
Yes.
So, this is really, really, and in all of this, Z, I think we forgot about probably one of the biggest stories of the week, and so we're not prepared to discuss Bill Cosby, but we're gonna, because I got to tell you, folks. Rarely is there a news story that makes me just sit my ass down and take a deep breath. And the first thought I had was, they released Bill Cosby. How much did that cost? And this is becoming, and this is causing a lot of things as well. Because this story is of Bill's TV wife, Felicia Rashad, sent out a very ill-mannered or ill-quoted tweet, poorly written tweet that claimed a great injustice had been undone. That for some reason Bill being in prison for sexual assault was an injustice. Let's be real, folks. This man admitted to this stuff. The fact that he's free on a technicality is just that. There was an unsubstantiated promise that that his testimony would not be used against him. It was used against him. That is against our principles in the United States. On the technicality, I understand what's happening. On the human side, there's a part of me that's really pissed off that we're just kicking a predator, and a very high-profile, very rich predator, back into the streets. And the first thing he said was, and almost within days, they're announcing his next comedy tour. You're going to have to pay me a lot of money to be the white guy in that audience. A couple grand, and maybe you pay me a couple grand, and maybe I'll go sit through that comedy set. But
I guarantee you, it will sell out. And again, we look at these things, and like you said, the technicality of it. You can look at the story we began with. What is the technicality of Miss Richardson not running? What's the technicality of black swimmers, women swimmers, trying to get the proper headgear for swimming that's going to be accepted? So herein lies the whole challenge that we're facing, I think, that COVID has brought up. Even when we start looking at slavery or racism, or if we look at the behavior of police officers, how many things have been overturned on technicalities, just dry long soap. I mean, you look at Eric Garner, or you look at any of these officers, technicality. Chauvin would have got off on a technicality had people not been there with a friggin' phone, 6 or 7 of them watching that.
Right.
And so now, here again, we begin. Technicalities have been part of the challenge that we've had for blacks and people of color throughout. They get them on technicality. So now, again, the full 360 is being brought up, and we have to get the equity and the justice together. We can't have one without the other, because it won't work.
So it's a healing because of black. There is a healing. I don't want to say because, but there is a healing in light of a black man getting off on the technicality. Because probably 1 in 10, black to white, in getting off on the being released for the technicalities.
Because think about all of the Innocent Project, all of these people, black and white, for that matter, that have been released from prison after being in there for years, and they were in there on a technicality because they withheld some evidence, and the technicality was, well, we didn't have all the information, so we're sorry, we let you out.
And Linda, no, we are not saying sexual assault is a technicality. We got a comment in the comment box. That is not what we are saying whatsoever. All we are saying is that he was released because of a technicality. Personally, I still believe him when he admitted to all these things. What's happening is the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania deemed that his admissions were not, that his confessions were not admissible as evidence against him, and therefore
because of his Fifth Amendment, he spoke freely and they say if you speak freely, you cannot be used against you, and that's where the challenge of that whole thing comes in.
Right. So yeah, please, we're not doing we're not going there, Linda, I promise you. Okay, folks, so we're gonna get out of here now. Before we do, I want to plant the seed, because Z, you just said something really important: the Innocent Project, and I think we should. I think I'd like to do a whole episode on that at some time. So let's put that in our production schedule.
Yes.
In the meantime, we're going to get out of here, folks. Let you get back into your day. At 7:30 Mountain Time means Laura Topper and Mama Powers getting started here in just a moment. We'll be here with morning prayers at 8:15 this morning. Rev Melissa with the morning sip at 8 a.m. 9. I'm going to get my times right sooner or later. 8:30 Mountain, 9 o'clock is Wake Up Say Thank You with Rev Steph. I'll be back at 9:30 with the Heart of Peace meditation, and Pastor Michael later this evening, 5 o'clock Mountain, for the fireside chat. Z, thanks for being with me this morning. This is always a great time.
Always great, man. There's always something to enlighten us and everybody with. So let's keep it going.
And Spirit always seems to say, "Oh, talk about this too." That works for us. Folks, we're out of here. We love you. Until next time, peace and blessings.
Peace.